The only African American woman to graduate from Cal Poly Pomona's computer systems program, right? What was that experience like for you?
It was definitely an eye-opener, and I had to push forward a lot. I definitely found myself like crying, having breakdowns, wanting to give up.
I know that as an industry, we've been trying to get to a good point of being able to detect and prevent insider threats effectively.
I feel like we are getting better, but in a sense, I still feel like because there's so much data everywhere, it's always going to be a problem. There's always a way to get information, and it's just a matter of how is a company protecting their information, and when the information gets out, what are they doing?
Are you there to spy on their emails? What's your experience been like with the adoption of all the AI tools by users who's just like, yeah, we can use AI?
Yeah, so I feel like I have a 50-50 opinion because yes, I feel like AI is definitely going to make everybody's lives easier. But I feel like there has to be AI education per se, because there's people who are using AI and it's like, let me just dump this whole classified document inside of ChatGPT so it can edit it perfectly. And it's like, do you know that it saves that stuff and the memory is updated?
Hey everyone, today we're so excited to be joined by Rose. Rose is a senior DLP and insider threat analyst at Edward & Jones. She holds a BSc degree focused on information security and forensics. Rose made her mark early on as the only African American woman to graduate from Cal Poly's Pomona Computer Information Systems program. Beyond her technical expertise, she's a passionate advocate for minorities and neurodiversity in STEM. She herself was diagnosed as an adult with autism, and so she uses her platforms on Instagram and TikTok to make cybersecurity accessible to everyone and to raise awareness about neurodiversity in STEM. This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated with Cyber Queen, where we break barriers one chat at a time. No one has the exact roadmap, but together we're challenging stereotypes. We'll show you that cybersecurity is for everyone. We're bold, smart, and unapologetically diverse. So Rose, I am so excited to be speaking with you today. Welcome to the show.
Indeed. Thank you so much for having me here. So excited for this talk.
Me too. Definitely. Very excited. So maybe a first question here is just a little bit about who is Rose?
Ooh, that's a deep question. Well, I guess the basics are I'm 29. I grew up in San Francisco, California. I have 2 cats, a loving boyfriend. I just recently learned how to crochet in my spare time. Oh, and I work out. I like weightlifting. I've gotten into that really heavy as of late.
And I'll add one for you here. You're always super fun and colorful, at least online. Like always.
Yes, indeed. I was just telling my best friend that if you ever see me with only one color in my hair, like lock me up in a mental institution because that means something's wrong.
Yeah, I get that. And I absolutely love that about you. Like it screams this like vibrant person and vibrant personality. We're mentioning, and this was kind of a tongue twister for me, but you said it so easily. The only African American woman to graduate from Cal Poly Pomona's computer systems program, right? So what was that about and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so that was an interesting experience only because, well, I guess we can back up. When I was in high school, I went to a private school. In that school, it was only, the majority wasn't Black people. So I kind of was used to not being the majority, but being the minority. But when I went to college, it was a lot bigger. And not only was I the minority, like in the school, but in my classes. So a lot of the times I was like the only African American in the class, or the only African American female. In some of my classes, I was like the only female in the class. And at first it was kind of challenging because, again, I'm an introvert. So it was kind of hard for me to go around and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, do you have the homework? Or, hey, can we study? Because I was a little intimidated because I felt like so many people knew much more than what I knew. And the one question that kind of set everything apart was one of my professors was like, were your parents computer engineers too? And I was like, no, my mom wasn't working and my dad has a trade skill in carpeting. So yeah, but the question that opened me up because the question was true for literally like all my other friends and all my other classmates that their parents were engineers or somehow in technology or was playing with technology from when they were a little kid. So yeah, it was definitely an eye opener and I had to push forward a lot. I definitely found myself like crying, having breakdowns, wanting to give up. But I just feel like one day I woke up and was like, there's some little girl, some little boy out there who's possibly going to look up to me one day and they want to be in the same field that I'm in. So if I can accomplish this, then I hope that one day they'll see me and be like, if she could do it, then I can do it too.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think it's so underrated how difficult that can be when firstly you're the only one of you there, and then you're the only one who doesn't. It's almost like you didn't even have the same equity. Like I'm always on this thing of like, you know, like equity versus equality. Like there's a big difference there, like where you start from and the cards that you have versus the cards that someone else has. You know, there's a, you know, equity plays a big role here. And so it's so fascinating to me how, you know, like equity really plays an important part, but people always seem to like rise above that. And in your case, it definitely sounds like that's the case. And so I want to ask, so how is that for you now? Because you mentioned that you're, you know, introverted and at the time you didn't go and ask questions, etc. But how is that for you now?
Yeah, now people are probably annoyed by how many questions I ask currently. And I think it's because I've had multiple people come into my life, more so after I graduated college. And that's another thing too. When I was in college, I think something that a lot of people do, at least in my role and possibly within the minorities within college, they continue to think inside of the box of just the college campus. But once I stepped out of college and I graduated and I really dove into the field in the world of cybersecurity from where I was staying in California and San Francisco and joining LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups, I was like, wow, there's really people out there. So with that, once I started networking and kind of just putting myself out there and my story out there, I've had a lot of people kind of just like latch on to me. Like one of my old managers, he would pick on me a lot, and not in the sense of bad picking on me, but we'll be in meetings and he'll be like, oh, Babette, what do you have to say about this? And this continued to happen like all through my life where people would just pick on me after I graduated, and it allowed me to practice my speaking, practice being okay with opening up. Because with my first job, I was the only African American female on my team. Yeah, I was one of the youngest people on my team. And then just in the atmosphere of like the place where I was there were people who were a lot older. So I was intimidated coming in because they had been in the company for years and years. And here I am just like fresh off the press off of college and everything. But now I know that if I want something done or if I want to understand something, then I have to ask questions. I have to be okay with not being the smartest one in the room. I have to be okay with being puzzled with things and being comfortable with being uncomfortable per se. And I will say that takes a lot of practice, but just networking, that's helped me a lot. Just going out there and trying to put myself out there, no matter the outcome, has helped me to be more outspoken, even though I still call myself an introvert.
Yeah. So you mentioned something that I think truly really stands out for me, and it's so fascinating listening to you because it's almost like a lot of it I can even relate with, also as an introvert, also coming in as kind of youngest in this space. And I know the feeling, and it's almost like a feeling of like your breath goes away at the time of when you need to ask the question. And so, you know, like sometimes the push is just enough inside of you to actually get it out and ask it. Other times you're just like, no, this is not going to happen. So with that, I want to say it sounds then like in that first role, whether you wanted or not, you had some mentors and you had some people that were pushing you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And so what was the feeling and experience like of that for you?
Yeah, at first, like I said, I thought my manager was picking on me. I was like, why do you keep calling on me? I don't have anything to offer per se. But in those times, me being picked on, it forced me to have an input because I always had an input, but I was always scared to say it. And for me, in my old role, I was like a team of one doing DLP. So I reported directly up to my manager. So I didn't really have too many teammates, which also meant that I was even more introverted per se. But as I continued to say my ideas, as I continued to take on projects and started challenging myself and kind of just doing things with the autonomy that I had a lot of people come to me and be like, whoa, I've never seen this done this way. Or, whoa, I've never seen like a person who's outspoken like you. And like I said, people just started to latch onto me. And once people started to latch onto me and I was able to tell them my story, people were like, whoa, you have to like tell your story to the world and you have to continue doing this. So even though there were many times where I feel like I went against the grain because I do have a history of being challenged when it comes to asking for help because I feel like I can do it all myself. I had multiple people there offering me support, offering me mentorships, just having chats with random people, even like in the lunchroom or at work or just anywhere. I've had many opportunities for, I guess, people just to give me their advice. And I always listened because I knew once I got into their role, it was going to be my turn to give advice. So I feel like you can escape a lot of situations by listening to other people's advice and wisdom.
I agree. I agree. So now a DLP specialist, right? You are a senior DLP and insider threat analyst. So what is the role and what do you do?
Yeah, so I started in data loss prevention, which is DLP, and in very simple terms, that just means I try to stop the most important information like company secrets, customer private information from leaving the company. So that can be through like blocks, that can be stopping certain ports on the computer, that can be from stopping people from going to certain websites, and if they do, trying to investigate. And then my new role now on top of data loss prevention, which is insider threat. So data loss prevention is like the first step. And then we have the people who are like, okay, well, I can't visit my personal email address, but let me see if I can plug in my USB, or let me see if I can go in after hours and try to access the same information. And then with insider threat, that's when we have all these different behaviors from a person, from different, I guess, tools. Yeah, from different tools on what they're trying to do. So taking information per se. And with insider threat, that's when I start investigating. So once we get multiple alerts, we go back maybe 30 to 60 days and we're like, okay, so what did this person do in the 30, 60 days? Did he try to access his personal email? Did he try to plug in a USB? Did he try to send stuff to him? Did he try to talk to certain people? And we kind of just look at their entire work life per se and investigate anything. But as an analyst, the one important thing is that we're not trying to be biased about anything. We're literally just trying to investigate the information that's found and then be able to tell the story without the bias. And then we create our report and bring it up to the next level. So in very, very simple terms, I am a cyber detective as well as I get paid to be nosy, which is the most fun part.
Nice. So firstly, I have to ask here for the audience per se, are you there to spy on their emails?
No, not unless you do something that allows me to spy on your emails. There's way too many emails that people send through a day. But I will say, once I get into investigating some of the cases, it shocks me on what people do on their work computer, what they use their work email address for, and the certain emails that they send from the work email address. And as a person who works in insider threat, don't use your work computer for stuff because we can see all that.
Firstly, good answer. And secondly, I feel like that is so important, right? Not many people know this. Like, not many people know, don't use your work computer for personal things. It's not really common knowledge. Like, people don't know that. But so from an insider threat perspective, I mean, insider threats for a number of years now, right? I mean, I'm in the pretty technical space. I don't really touch insider threat investigations or things like that. For me, it would be more on the enabling the capabilities for the team to be able to do that. Now, insider threats have been on the rise for many, many years. And like, I know that as an industry, we've been trying to get to a good point of being able to detect and prevent insider threats effectively. Would you say we're there, or we're getting there, or what's your take on that?
I will say we're starting to get there, but it's opened up a bigger problem because ever since COVID hit, now we have remote work, and now we're trying to control what people can do at home. And then we have all these different people traveling. And then we have like I think it was like the job migration where people are just bouncing around jobs. And one thing is like, people believe that anything that they create inside of their job while they were working is theirs. So they try to take all that stuff and then they'll like upload it to the next job. And now you have like cross contamination. And then we just have all these different avenues because there's literally like data everywhere. So now we have to have certain tools in place, which is why for insider threat, a behavior analytic tool is one of the most important tools to have, because I told you data loss prevention is the first thing. It just blocks stuff, but you can always get over data loss prevention, which is why it's one of the hardest things to do. But then you have the behavioral analytics. And like I said before, it'll take someone's baseline. And when someone starts messing up in their baseline, then we get all these alerts like, hey, someone's doing this. Hey, someone's doing this. And that's when you're starting to investigate. So now that we have AI, and then we have behavioral analytics, and then we have DLP tools, and then we just have like a whole tree of different things to detect different alerts and investigate. I feel like we are getting better, but in a sense, I still feel like because there's so much data everywhere, it's always going to be a problem unless you run into like zero trust. And even with zero trust, I still feel like there's always a way to get information, and it's just a matter of how is a company protecting their information, and when the information gets out, what are they doing and how are they stopping people from doing it? Because disgruntled employees are literally everywhere. And then there's compromised employees, the people who like click the links, and now all of a sudden their computer is taking over and they won't even know it. So it's a whole bunch of different avenues. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. It's a catch-22 per se.
Yeah. And you mentioned AI, right? Now when we look at DLP, and DLP has for some years now been this mountain, like then it's about the labeling, the classification, and then it's about the implementation, and then you can prevent, then you somehow rely on users to classify their own data, if the tools don't do it correctly. Like, it's just this big mountain. And then, like, on top of that, now you bring in this little small issue called AI, right? I mean, what's your experience been like with the adoption of all the AI tools by users who's just like, yeah, we can use AI, what's that like for you?
Yeah, so I feel like I have a 50-50 opinion because yes, I feel like AI is definitely going to make everybody's lives easier. But I feel like there has to be AI education per se, because there's people who are using AI and it's like, let me just dump this whole classified document inside of ChatGPT so it can edit it perfectly. And it's like, do you know that it saves that stuff and the memory is updated? And yeah, maybe one day it won't even use it, but maybe, just maybe it will. And then it's just like trying to explain to people like the different attacks that can happen on certain levels when you transfer over information. Like one thing that we're experiencing now is like people are sending their passwords, and I'm talking about literally their entire lifetime of passwords, account numbers, and the whole nines in an Excel sheet over through email. And we're trying to have to educate people like, have you heard of a man in the middle attack? Like all that information can go out. So it just comes with like training people on how to use AI properly. Because I don't think AI is going to go away. And a lot more tools are going to incorporate AI, and that's going to be tools outside of work and tools inside of work as well. But it just comes with, like everything, education, education, and being able to not scare people, as in like, if you put in all the information, then all the AI robots are going to come back to the company and blah, 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 blah. But as opposed to just telling them, hey, if you do this, there's a possibility of this. And once this possibility happens, it affects everybody in the company and it can affect you directly. So it's just being able to talk to people about the pros and cons of doing things the correct way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there was a time when I thought that the user awareness training part of things might actually become a little bit annoying and obsolete, but it really isn't. The user awareness is so important, and especially with AI coming in, it is that like for every new like technological evolution, you need that education, right? But I mean, you're super passionate about the data protection side and about, you know, like your analysis on insider threats and all those things. So how did you get into the data protection space specifically?
Yeah, so to make a long story short, when I first got into college, I started off computer science. I didn't like computer science. I went to my counselor and was like, hey, is there something a little bit like still behind computers, but maybe a little bit more talking? And he was like, yeah, we have computer information systems, but it's in the business administration's part. So they were trying to bridge the gap between the business people and the technology people, because they always have a hard time trying to talk. So fast forward a couple years, I'm in my last year. And I'm in my core classes. And at the time, we had digital forensics, we had programming, and a couple other things too. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do any of that stuff. And then I was like, okay, let's go into digital forensics because I really liked it. And to take it back, I wanted to be like Penelope off of Criminal Minds. And I just wanted to be inside of a room with like 5 different computer screens typing away and helping from the background and the sidelines and everything. So I got really interested into digital forensics. I started applying to all these places. And then I got one hit from my old job. And with my old job, I got the hit, I got the interview. And then after I got the interview, they denied me, and I wasn't too happy about them denying me because I have a hard time answering no. So I was like, I wrote a rebuttal letter basically saying, well, you don't have the right to deny me. One, you don't even know me. I feel like this is my dream job, and if I prove myself, this can go great. And if I don't prove myself, you can kick me off the team, so forth and so on. So my past manager, I got another interview with the CISO. So we fast forward, I'm coming back from San Francisco. Yeah, I'm coming back from San Francisco and going back to LA. And this is the last week of college during my finals week and everything. And I'm over here panicking because all my friends have jobs and everything. And I'm like, I need to make some money now because I'm about to get kicked out of the house and I need to go back home. So I'm about to walk off stage for graduation. And it's like 20 minutes. And I get a text from my past manager. And he's like, this isn't for the role of digital forensics, but we have a role for you, data loss prevention. And in my head, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So that's when I got employed. And my first day on the job, when I tell you I had no clue what I was doing at all, I had looked at the sheet where it shows you all the skills and requirements that you need, and I didn't check mark any of those boxes. It was wild. But the reason why I found out later on that my manager gave me that job as opposed to digital forensics, because digital forensics, you have to be by the book, as opposed to DLP when it was 2019, it was like, it wasn't a buzzword like it is now. It was just people trying to figure out how to not get important documents out of the company's system. So I had a lot more autonomy to create a lot more different things. So with that, I turned into like my baby, because I had like multiple projects trying to build this DLP system for my old company. And from there, 3 years in, I had built the data loss prevention system for my company. And I was doing the work of maybe like 10 people for one person. And just with that project, that bumped me up from a like entry level to being a senior within 3 years, because I decided to take on that opportunity of not knowing what I was doing at all, and then just trying to figure it out day by day.
Wow, this is amazing. This is like I'm sitting here in awe because I'm just recalling now like the earlier parts of our discussion, like in my mind of you even getting the job, then starting in there, and then still having like, you know, all of these feelings of like being an introvert, being new, like not asking questions, all of that. But through all of that, like you had it's almost like you have a separate side that can do whatever you have to do without having to speak to anyone and without having to speak up. Like you can completely, you know, like nail the projects, like do all those things. That's fine. But then it was still like the personal growth aspect that you needed, like you needed someone to push you and to kind of build that confidence in you to now be able to kind of step up. So that's incredible. But so just to follow the story here, so this was the same company that you wrote the letter to that then hired you in a different role. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my first job. And then I hopped out of that job and got into my second job, where now I'm in a senior role, thanks to my old job pushing me.
Amazing, amazing. So, I mean, what would you say to people that may have already done a lot more certifications or education than what you did when you got your first opportunity into the security space, that don't believe that they are equipped enough to get a job?
I still feel like I struggle with imposter syndrome when it comes to that, because I have a lot of people asking me like, oh, what certifications should I take? And I'm like, I don't have any certifications. And they're like, oh, what did you graduate with? Does it relate to your job now? And I was like, yes and no. So I tell them, when it comes to that, I feel like certifications are definitely a way to get information that you're going to use later on down your career path. But the one thing that I feel like companies want is a curious mind. Because with the curious mind, the right attitude, with passion and with grit, you can get anything done. And I feel like that's the one reason why I feel like I've gone so far, is because when it comes to something that I'm interested in and that I'm passionate about, it could be a trauma response, but I need to understand literally everything about it. So I'm like researching, I'm asking questions, I'm comparing and contrasting, going to other companies and asking questions about their things, because I feel like I'm going to figure it out. If not anyone, then it's going to be me. So I feel like when it comes to cybersecurity is humongous. And when I first got into my job, I felt imposter syndrome, because I felt like I had to know everything at the top of my head, meaning that I wouldn't have any access to a computer or my phone to like research anything. But once I got inside of the role, I was like, wait, you people don't know anything either. Not in a sense of like, you don't have like knowledge, but it's like you will go out there and research the knowledge that you have on hand, as opposed to having it at the top of your head. And then with that, that's when you gain experience and when you gain wisdom. So that gave me like, that lifted a lot of weight off of my shoulders, understanding that people were winging it in the same way that I was winging it. But the thing that made them senior when they winged it is that they had experience and they tried multiple different avenues, and they delegated tasks among people and found the correct people to get resources from. So that's why I always stress that networking is really, really important, because you never know who you're going to run into. And now I hate to say this, but it's not all the time about what you know. It's about who you know, who's inside your networking circle, who you can go to, who's your mentor, who's your sponsor, who's your friend, who you're going to sit there and grind with, who you're going to sit there and study with, and who you're going to get a job together with. So you just have to have a really supportive circle, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand how hard it can be to be in cybersecurity, because things are forever changing. You're always learning. And no matter what, no matter how far you go in this career, you're always going to be learning and you're always going to be studying. And some people just don't understand that. So you have to surround yourself with people in cybersecurity doing the exact same thing, and learn from them and grow from them and grow together.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what I'm working on here, especially with the podcast, is to showcase that cybersecurity, firstly, is not that complicated, and it's not a certain type of it's not a certain degree or a certain certification or a certain type of way that you're going to get there. It really isn't. By speaking to you and to so many of the other guests on the show, it's like really learning, like one of those secret ingredients that I'm now gonna like add to the list that we have to do after, is like the curiosity aspect, right? Because you described it so well. It really is that. It's like in cybersecurity, you can get there and not know anything, and someone willing enough to give you an opportunity will give you that opportunity if they can uncover, or if they realize that you have that thing, like that curiosity thing, the thing that is like, no, but I want this and I will do the work for this. And then you come up and you showcase that you will do the work, because it's kind of leaving you on your own as a junior, and you'll figure it out, because that's what senior people do. Senior people figure it out. Junior people figure it out. Like everyone figures it out. It's just someone has more years of figuring it out than you starting now and figuring it out, right? That's the key difference.
Exactly. That makes so much sense.
So let me ask now, so is your role that you're currently doing in DLP, how would you describe it? Is it a very technical role or not so technical? How would you describe it?
I feel like my role now isn't super technical per se. I feel like it's more strategic, because I feel like, at least for the DLP part of it, because there's no definite answer, you always have to figure out different strategies on how to do certain things. So I always have like a pen and paper next to me on my daily basis, trying to figure out different ways to organize different things, testing different things, implementing different things. And then the insider threat part, you just have to have a certain mindset. That one can be a little bit more technical, because yes, we have like your everyday user who may not know that, hey, you're not supposed to send this out. But then you also have your malicious user who's like, okay, well, let me figure out a couple technical ways that I can try to take company data. So then you have to reframe your mind from being an analyst to being the threat actor. So you have to think like a criminal in order to catch a criminal. But like I said, so it's not all the way technical, but being technical definitely helps. It's just an idea of being curious, being determined, but also knowing when to stop. Because insider threat is like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes, because you're combing through a bunch of data and trying to figure out something. But you have to also have the mindset to where you're like, okay, maybe I'm going in the wrong direction and I should shift ways. And then also it's being able to speak to people as well, because when it comes to data loss prevention, you are going to be partnering with a bunch of different organizations inside of the company. And then I know at my old job, I was like the face of DLP, and people were like pissed off at me because I came in and I was putting all these blocks in, and they're like, I've been doing this for years, and that's not the way we're supposed to do it, and you're stopping me from my work. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not trying to prevent you, I'm trying to help the company. So you have to have a lot of interpersonal skills, a lot of strategic skills, analytics, and then also being able to be technical and just talk to people. It takes a lot of skills. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I hear you. So if you were to, now that you're a senior, We love that. If you were to hire or employ a junior person in your team, what skills would you be looking for that person to have?
Like we talked about, curiosity, passion, and then someone who's not afraid to speak up and try things. I feel like a lot of people, especially like in certain junior level roles, entry level roles, sometimes even senior roles, they're afraid to quote unquote shake the table or try something new or just take on different projects. And I feel like if I were to hire someone underneath me, which I'm hoping that we do very, very soon so I can share some of the work, I want someone who is similar to me and in the idea that if they see a problem, they're going to go after the problem and they're going to have multiple different avenues on how to fix the problem, but they're able to work by themselves to try to figure out stuff, but also have the mindset on being able to ask questions or delegate tasks when they need to so they don't get burned out. So above all, I just want curiosity and passion. With that, you can rule the world, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, technical skills, product-based skills, those skills can be learned on the job, and those are the fastest skills to learn. I find personally that when you employ someone who doesn't have the right soft skills and aptitude and the right kind of personality for this job fit, then they can, like, even if they have multiple certifications, like the time for them to ramp up in being able to actually do the work that's needed is so like, it's so hard versus just identifying the person that has the right aptitude and attitude and soft skills and personality or like character with those character traits. Then it's like, I'm like, that's fine. They'll learn, like as long as the person is that way, that's fine. They'll learn. And I think that's super important for security across the board because it's you have to be so driven and passionate, I think, to really enjoy this space, right? Because, I mean, like you're saying, it's like a lot of knowledge and it's hard work to continuously learn these things. Like cybersecurity is not difficult, but it's hard work to continue to learn these things, and people are challenging you. They think you're fighting them and you're trying to ruin their lives and all these things. But in essence, it's like you're doing your job and you're doing it like always. I find that one thing about us, we're always thinking about the end users first. We're like, what's the user experience and what's the people experience? And then they come and they're like, you're trying to ruin my life.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. I feel you. So with that, I think let's move into a section that is called rapid fire. So in this section, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and then you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. So you can answer as short or as detailed as you want, but like with the first thing that comes to mind. Okay?
Cool.
Perfect. So what would be your go-to beverage on a day where you are like super busy with investigating an insider threat?
If I remember to drink anything, it would be hot green tea with a bunch of honey and a little bit of lemon in a really tall cup to keep me going. So that way I'm warm inside and I have the consistent flow of energy.
Very specific. Like that. So do you work remotely or do you go into the office?
I work remotely.
Okay. And then how does a day look like for you in terms of hours that you work? Is it kind of 9 to 5 or is it more than that?
It's sporadic. So I'm the only one on my team that works in the West Coast. So there's people on my team who are 2 hours ahead or 3 hours ahead. So some days I'm like up at 6 o'clock in the morning trying to reply to different things. I have people contacting me. And then other times I'm working late because of investigations, and sometimes I'll like stop when my team stops. So it's like literally all over the place depending what I'm working on. I can be working on alerts, but the longest things are investigations because an investigation can take anywhere from 1 to 4 days trying to gather all the information and get the reports out. So Yeah, you're always working. And then you're on call too, just in case something pops off.
So, if you were to choose another career, what would it be?
Mm, something in psychology. So, like I said, Criminal Minds used to be my favorite show. So, I really like the idea of being able to analyze people. So, before cybersecurity, I wanted to be I think it's like a forensic psychologist or something like that. So we have all these criminals, and then you like talk to them and you try to figure them out by like their micro movements and the way that they think. I've always been really interested in that, which is why I think I'm interested in insider threat, because like I said, you have to have the mind of a criminal in order to catch a criminal. So kind of combine two of the things.
And also to add, the insider threat is the most difficult one to catch because they are hitting you from the inside. So it's very difficult.
Exactly.
So when it comes to learning or keeping up to date with all the things you're doing, like you're saying, you're doing a lot of work, projects, all these things. How do you keep up to date, or what's your organization structure like? What works for you?
I'm kind of a like free thinking fairy. So I have my certain things to where it's like, one, I listen to podcasts, I listen to books, I'm always on social media. So I try to incorporate cybersecurity in those things. So if I want to listen to a podcast, I have like three different topics. I have cybersecurity. So that can be interviews with different CISOs, that can be events that just happen, just anything cybersecurity. And then when it comes to social media, I'm on my Technically Rose page. So I follow a bunch of people who are either talking about cybersecurity events or trying to explain stuff. And then also diving myself into the different LinkedIn groups, the different Facebook groups. So that way, when I feel like I want to scroll and take a break, then there's always going to be something cybersecurity on there. And then also just networking with different people. And then I always just like have different books on my desk and in my library. So if I ever get bored, it's like, okay, let's do something cybersecurity so you're not falling behind. But you have to incorporate it into your life like almost every day to stay ahead.
I agree with you. It's either incorporated into your life or like get behind, because that's literally how it's like, how fast it is now. What's one cybersecurity myth that you would like to bust? Yeah, that's a super interesting one.
That AI is going to take over the world.
Oh yeah. Or all SOC analysts are obsolete by AI, right? AI has removed analysts. Yeah.
Jobs. Yeah, because I feel like everyone has this idea that, oh, AI is going to come in and take everybody's jobs. I don't feel like that's going to be the thing. I feel like AI is going to be incorporated into people's jobs. And if you don't learn how to use AI, then you're going to fall behind because you have people using resources to get ahead. And if you don't use resources to get ahead, then yeah, you're going to lose your job because you're not doing as good as them. But I feel like people have this big scare when it comes to AI, in the same way that people had scares when it came to certain things like a telephone. People thought the world was going to go crazy once telephones came in. It's like, yes, it's a disrupting technology, but if you know how to use it in the proper ways, it can help you. Like, I've been introducing so many people to ChatGPT, and it's been changing so many people's lives. Like, you just have to introduce it in a way that helps them, as opposed to introducing it in a way that's going to scare them away. And it's information. A lot of people just are scared because they don't have the correct information about AI and what it can do and what it's currently doing. But of course, there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people, by nature are so hesitant to change, right? And so now that applies even digitally and to technology. But unfortunately, people who haven't even started adopting AI yet into kind of their daily life things are already starting to be behind. And so there's even a catch-up curve for those people to now figure out, oh, this is AI. Oh, this is how I use it, because now you get jobs like prompt engineering. And I saw an interesting cybersecurity job the other day. And I was like, oh, if SOC analysts are going to become obsolete, then here's another one for you, because it was a job ad for an analyst to verify AI outputs in cybersecurity, right? So it was like, yeah, they're using AI for cybersecurity analysis. And so now they need a human analyst to verify the AI outputs, right? So then I was like, oh, so then you could just pivot to that. I think it's definitely a super interesting world that we're going to now. But consumption of technology is super important by anyone who at least wants to operate in the industry or who wants to use technology going forward. It's a must.
Yeah.
You did very well in rapid fire. Very well. So now I want to move to the next question. And this one pertains to neurodiversity in cybersecurity. So first I want to ask, disadvantage or superpower? Where are we leaning to?
I think it's a superpower. So I think it was a couple months ago, I did a talk about the advantage of being autistic in cybersecurity. I think it's an advantage because, like I said, all the skills that a person in cybersecurity needs, that's being logical, analytical, being detailed, having grit when there's a problem, not knowing when to stop, hyper focus. Those are like literally all my super strengths. And I feel like in cybersecurity, I'm able to use them as opposed to like multiple jobs I've worked before outside of cybersecurity, like the ones that I was working in high school or in college before I got my job. I feel like when I used those skills, it was like looked down upon, or I wasn't able to use those skills in the way that I wanted to. And then I feel like once I got into this world of cybersecurity, I started finding my people, because to my knowledge, you actually find a lot of people who are on the spectrum who are neurodivergent inside of cybersecurity. So once I started opening my network and was like, oh my gosh, I found my people. But even before that, because I was only diagnosed with autism in 2021, and I've been working in cybersecurity since 2019. So once I found out that I had autism and I was started to become proud and being able to explain that to people, then other people told it to me, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of people you in here. So I just feel like it's a great place for people in cybersecurity who are neurodivergent, because you get flexibility, you get to showcase your skills, and I guess I feel quote unquote normal inside of cybersecurity as opposed to the outside world. Like, I really love my team because we're all like the same type of personality. So yeah, I feel like it's definitely an advantage.
Amazing, amazing. When it comes to being on the spectrum and thinking of that aspect, and then thinking of minorities in STEM, right? Like, you're pretty much an advocate across the board here. So what changes would you like to see in the industry specifically to promote growth in these areas?
Yeah, so I think the hiring practice, and like we talked about before, giving people chances. Like my last job that I had, I feel like I butchered the interview process because of, I think now it was due to my autism and different social cues and different pitches. And in a way, they felt like I wasn't per se like interested because I couldn't output the certain voice and everything. But with my job that I'm currently at now, their hiring and interview process was a little bit different. So for the first step of interviewing, you did your own video. You recorded, I think it was like a couple minutes for each question that they had. And that helped me a lot because I didn't have the pressures of someone else inside of the room. And if I wanted to, I can re-record, and I was able to pay attention just to my face as opposed to looking at multiple different faces. And then on top of that, once I got inside of the job, I was able to say, hey, I have autism, or hey, I'm an African-American female. What are the resources for me? And it was available to me. I was able to grab onto business resource groups. I was able to get the resources that I need and then tell my manager and tell my team that, hey, I'm struggling here. Can you help me with this? Or hey, I need you to give me a full agenda before we talk. I need everything written out before we talk so I can remember. Yes, I like phone calls, but I'd rather do emails because I can see everything. So I feel like it just needs to be a opening people's mindsets when it comes to hiring and retaining talent, because everybody's different. The world is changing. And I feel like a lot of hiring managers are doing it the old way. And that's why retainment inside of jobs isn't there, because you hired the person, but now they're in the job and they don't know what to do. They don't feel comfortable because we have all these old rules and people are stuck in their ways. So I just feel like there needs to be an involvement of people inside the jobs, and then a place where people can go to speak their minds, so there can be change within the companies.
Amazing. What advice would you give to someone that is right now, maybe they are just starting their first job and they feel misunderstood, or they feel like they didn't really quite find their people because they're very different in the role that they are right now, and they don't know how to kind of speak up for themselves? What would your advice be?
Yeah, so my first advice would be, if you really, really feel like you're not in the right position, then quit. Don't force yourself to be in the position where you feel like you can't move up the ranks, you don't have people listening to you, or you're miserable. Don't stay there. But if you feel like, I'm trying to figure out a better way to frame this, but I probably can't. If you feel like you may be the problem or you're your own block, then there's certain things you can do. Like, I've had sponsors, and a sponsor is a person who's going to speak for you in the rooms that you're not in. So you can tell them your ideas and they'll probably amplify them to the different rooms. That can definitely help. Or just tagging along with somebody inside of your job, so that way you have somebody to bounce off ideas with. And then if you're too nervous to go up and speak to somebody, then that way you can go and do it as a team. So again, it's just all about having support, stepping outside of your comfort zone, and then just practicing speaking to people and how to speak to people. I think that's something that took me a while to learn, because everybody doesn't listen to the same language. Everybody may speak the same language, but everybody doesn't listen the same. So being able to talk in a language that people will understand. But in order to do that, you have to network with people, so you'll get a whole dynamic of different people, so you can bring those skills into the job so people can hear what you're trying to say. So it takes a lot of practice, but you just gotta jump out there and try.
Amazing. But I mean, I love the recommendation on firstly having a sponsor. That, like, I wouldn't even have thought of that. That is like a super good idea for someone who like just goes and represents your ideas. That's phenomenal. And then I also, like, it reminded me that I have a personal story here around a team lead who I usually would tag with. So when I a few years ago made my transition from a pure supporting or engineering role. So there I was pretty much like right into kind of configuration and engineering tasks. Like, I didn't really have to speak to anyone unless I was send them an email, which was perfect for me. Didn't prefer talking, so emailing, perfect. And so then I made this transition into this very customer facing technical specialist role. And two things I found about myself in that role: when I was in a meeting and I had to speak on technical security things, I was fine. I could actually have the conversation and I could speak on that. But when it came to like other meetings about sharing new ideas and being available socially and things like that, it was the worst thing ever for me. I was like, no way, why is this happening? And I had this team lead, and he would be next to me and he'd be like, yeah, we'll go together. It's fine. Yeah. So I also know the feeling of like, the work thing is okay, but the social things are so important, right? It's like networking and like conferences and social things, even at work, is so important. Then I want to talk a little bit about what you do on Instagram, because you make very, very cool cybersecurity videos on Instagram and security awareness. So, I mean, what's been the inspiration and what's your favorite part of creating the content that you do?
Yeah, so my inspiration was at my old job, my manager, again, stepping out my comfort zone, he gave me an intern. And this intern was in high school. I really don't think he was interested in cybersecurity at all. So I was kind of like, what can I do with this kid? So I was like, how can I make cybersecurity interesting? So I started going on YouTube and started looking for videos about cybersecurity. And I'm over here scrolling like boring, too technical, not enough. So I'm like, this is terrible. And then I just woke up one day and was like, what if I started making my own content? Because I remember my mom, God bless her soul, she passed away. She always used to tell me, why don't you start making videos or go out there to the community and like run a workshop for like older people so they can understand cybersecurity? And in my head, I was like, I don't have the patience for that. I barely like people. And you want me to teach technical skills to people who have no clue what it is? So then that popped into my head. And this was during, I think COVID just hit. So the only way that I can do this was through videos. So with that, I started making videos because in my head, as we both know, we work in the field of cybersecurity. So we think everything is common knowledge because it's our everyday life. But when I started telling people certain things, they would look at me and be like in disbelief. And I was like, you don't know that? And then I was like, okay, now it's my duty to go out there and teach people certain things. So I started making videos about cybersecurity tips and tricks. But I wanted to make it fun and interesting. And I wanted to bring in, I guess, today's social atmosphere with memes, different movies, different cuts, and just make it humorous in a way that people will learn and laugh at the same time. Because I feel like if you're laughing, then you're learning. And if you're having a good time, then you're locked into the information. So that's what I started to do. And I think the best part about doing that is being able to wake up and just be creative. Like I'll just wake up, have an idea, and it's like, okay, cool. How am I going to execute this idea and how am I going to make it fun and what different things I'm going to take from different people to put this thing together. And also just like learning tools. I'm certain that when you start podcasting, it's like, whoa, you have 10,000 opportunities to use all these different tools, but you get to learn how to use them. And as you go on and on, you get to improve upon it. So I think just the learning part has been one of the most fun things. And then the teaching part.
Yeah, amazing. And I fully agree with that, learning and teaching. And also the fact that when you talk like on your videos to someone about these topics, like you really have to know what you're talking about, because that's what it takes for you to be able to explain it, is like you actually knowing it to be able to explain it. So yeah, I fully agree. And I mean, I now come to figure out a lot of cybersecurity professionals are creative people. Like it's almost like there must be a creative outlet, right?
Yes, that is so true. I feel like that's the thing. A lot of people who are in cybersecurity, who are in senior roles, they didn't go to school for cybersecurity. They went to school for some arts. They went to school for some like psychology or history. Like it's like the most craziest major. And then on top of that, not only are they doing cybersecurity, but they're creative behind the scenes. So it's like it goes hand in hand, and it always shocks me, which is why I'm always interested in like people are asking people how did they get into cybersecurity, because it's never the answer that you think.
Yeah. Exactly, 100% for the people, because I mean, right now there are thousands of people out there who are trying to find, the roadmap, which none of us obviously have, right? We don't have it. We have a perspective of what's possible, but we don't have the roadmap. We don't have the answers. So, I mean, for the people who's exploring this and they're trying to find the roadmap or the right course or the right opportunity, but they just feel like the industry is closed or saturated, right? What would you say to that? The industry is saturated.
My simple answer is look outside the industry and look inside of your community. I know for when I was in college, one of our senior projects was to go into the community and give back our skills. So we were making web pages for people. We were setting up computers for different businesses inside of the community outside of the college campus. So you literally can start there and you can gain your skills from there. And that's another thing that we talked about is learning on the job. You're going to learn no matter what. So take it upon yourself to give back, to learn while you're trying to do certain things. And that way you can build the skills, because a lot of things that I feel like people are quote unquote complaining about is like, oh, well, I don't have 5 to 10 years of experience. It's like, okay, you don't, but it's opportunities for you to go out there and go to your local sandwich store and be like, hey, do you guys, for example, have DLP? Do you guys have a website? Do you guys have internet protection and all these different things? And that way you build your interpersonal skills, you build your technical skills, and then you build a resume so you can bring it up to somebody. And that's another thing. Nowadays, we live in 2024. Everything is about social capital. What are you doing and what do you have to show for it? What projects have you been doing? Who have you been helping? All those different things. So you basically have to build a digital portfolio of everything that you've been doing. And I feel like so many people get stuck on getting all these certifications. But yes, the certifications are important, but I feel like a lot of people get stuck because then you become too technical in certain things. And now I feel like, yes, companies want technical, but it's even more important to be able to have the interpersonal and the human skills behind it. And I feel like people are losing the human skills trying to chase the technical parts of cybersecurity.
Absolutely. So well said. And I love that last statement, the losing the human skill. I love it. Yeah, I fully agree. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so on LinkedIn, you can find me and search of Babette Jackson, and that's Babbette Jackson. And then on Instagram, by Technically Rose, it's technically 2_ Rose. And on TikTok, for autism, you can find me at The Autistic Giraffe. Yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm in multiple places. If you just Google my name, I'll pop up in multiple avenues.
Amazing. I love that. Well, Rose, Babette, thank you so much for joining me today. I've absolutely loved speaking with you. I cannot wait to see kind of all of the feedback from all of the information you've shared, because honestly for me it's been super inspirational. So I've absolutely loved speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming and joining me.
Indeed, thank you so much too. This has been really great. I appreciate the chance to speak to you.
Absolutely. This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated, and I'm your host, Cyber Queen.